Welcome to another episode of Personal Brand Blueprint Podcast. I'm Dave Polykoff, CEO and co-founder of Zenpost.com, your personal brand blueprint for launch, growing, and monetizing your personal brand online. If you struggle with finding the right messaging that resonates with your audience and then turning that messaging into consistent content online that does attract, convince, and convert your ideal client, then definitely check out zenpost.com to learn more about our monthly done-for-you branding and content services. We will craft your brand messaging and then create monthly content for you that attracts, convinces, and converts your ideal client on LinkedIn and other channels as well. On today's episode, we have Andrea Merrill, CEO and storytelling speaker, sales coach, and strategist at Virtually Adventurous. Put simply, she helps her clients find their stories that sell. And boy, have they ever, as she's helped her clients close over $80 million in revenue through her storytelling strategies. Today, we're chatting with Andrea about how we can craft and promote our client attracting stories to grow and monetize our personal brands. So Andrea, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I am so excited to be here. Also, a quick tidbit is I am no longer virtually adventurous. I am just
Oh,
Andrea Merrill Co. I made
this is
a
breaking news?
This is breaking
You
news.
heard it here first. I wish this was
You're
a live right now, a YouTube
Yeah.
live. Yeah.
Yeah, you are hearing it first. A big part of being a business owner, being a speaker, being a storyteller is using your name. And Dave, to be honest, I've been hiding behind my brand for too long. And there are times within your brand when you should break free and really be known as yourself. And I figured out after 6 years that that's exactly what was perfect during this season.
Well, I feel like what you're describing is you are now going all in on personal branding, that you are now your
Yes.
full me LLC. So love it. I love
Yes.
that. And we celebrate you for that. And I want to actually talk more about that and what kind of, as you started to allude to, some of the
Yeah.
decisions that are ideas that led to that decision. But first, let's actually talk about like what you do now for your individual personal brand. So let's start with just the big question of what do you do?
Yeah, so I am a story to scale coach, and I work with speakers and entrepreneurs, business owners, really helping them craft their story because stories sell, right? At the end of the day, nobody wants to be sold to. They want to hear a story. They want to resonate. They want to become a hero in your story. So I help them craft keynotes, their brand story, and being able to help them really showcase what strategies they have going on, where they were and where they are today, and how we can craft that into something that'll help them close deals. Because as you heard, I helped my clients generate over $80 million in revenue. And we did that by crafting their story and helping that lead to sales.
What's typically the problem that people are facing when they do come to someone like you? I mean, is it that they don't have a story at all? Is it that they're trying to tell their story and it's having a problem? What's the problem you immediately can identify and are helping with?
Yeah. So a lot of the times when you listen to speakers or business owners, they tell a lot of facts. They're constantly factual. They're like, this is a matter of fact. This is who I am, where I came from, blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares about you. Sorry. Nobody cares about you. I know you've heard this, but honestly, it stings when you hear that. And it's like, oh, nobody cares about me. They care about you in a sense of how can you guide them to where they want to be. So they want to become, like I said, that hero in your journey. You're showing them, hey, I've been through the trenches, I've roughed it, and I've made it out, and this is how you can too. So people typically come to me whether Andrea, I don't have a story at all. I don't even know where to start. I have no idea what that even looks like. I have your typical, I started my business when I needed it the most, and this is what I've done. This is how many kids I have, blah, 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 right? Like they don't know their brand story and their story that's going to lead to sales because we're selling. And then the other part of it is they have built out a story conversion and it doesn't land. They're constantly telling it, they're sharing their story, but there's not a golden moment in that story that people can see themselves in. And also in psychology, because I have my master's in psychology of applied behavioral analysis, in psychology, people actually don't convert with facts. They convert with emotion. So, how are you emotionally converting your people versus spewing out? Because I love statistics. I'm a statistic fanatic. They're amazing, but there is a place for them. And if they first don't see themselves and don't feel that emotional connection, then you're not even going to get to the point where statistics matter.
So, who would be the most ideal person to apply these storytelling techniques? Like, who's an ideal client for you, and who's someone that you know your system just works the best for?
Yeah. So I'm going to be honest, everybody should have a story. I know that that sounds like cliche, but to be honest, no matter what brand you are in, no matter what business you are in, no matter if you're a speaker, which I'm going to be honest, everybody is a speaker. If you're a business owner, you're a speaker because you're talking to clients, you're having to go market, you are wearing all the hats. But if you don't self identify as a speaker, as in I get on stages and I speak and I story tell, then I'm going to be honest, like you still need a story. So my ideal client that I worked with is typically a heart-centered brand that is like, I have a story to tell. I have been through some stuff and I just have no idea how to put it all together. And they've been, like I said, giving lots of facts, giving lots of knowledge. They're very into teaching versus storytelling. And there's a difference between the two. So I typically work with those heart-led centered business owners that are like, I want to change lives at a scale. I just don't know how to do that yet.
I can tell you have a great passion for storytelling, and you see the power, obviously, that it can bring individuals, being that you have that $80 million revenue number there.
Yeah.
But take us back. How did you get into storytelling? How did you find that passion? And like, what was kind of your own story for understanding the value of storytelling?
Oh, this is such a good question. Oh my gosh. Um, so I used to be a behavior and trauma therapist for high profile cases in Arizona. I also worked in North Carolina and South Carolina with abused and neglected children as a guardian ad litem. I also worked inside of the prison system as well. So not only did I work with the victims, I worked with the perpetrators. These are cases that you would see on CNN, you would see all over the news, documentaries, like all the things. I actually see some of them that I've worked um, on TV, and it's really amazing to see. But also, I was in their life at the hardest moment of their life, at a moment where in time it's going to be a story that they will tell for generations to come. And honestly, it's not good stories, right? Like when you're seeing your sister or your brother be murdered in front of you at the age of 5 years old, that's not a story that's like one that you're going to be sharing at the dinner table, right? But it's one that I was very connected to. I come from a childhood of trauma, hence becoming a behavior and trauma therapist. I always said I wanted to give the voice to those that don't have one, and that's how I did it. I've gotten all of my advanced degrees. I was on the dean's list, president's list. Like I am, yeah, you're right. Stories and psychology are in my blood. But what led me here today was what I call a serendipitous opportunity, but you won't call it that. I almost died pregnant with my fifth child. My appendix ruptured at 20 weeks pregnant with her, and I was airlifted out multiple times. I caught MRSA. I had a drain placed. I was in and out of the hospital. And then finally, a month before I gave birth. I was out for the longest stint, and that was 7 days, and my water broke. And I was like, seriously, I'm headed back to the hospital. Went back to the hospital, and I actually had complications that they wanted to do surgery on. And I decided not to do the surgery because my baby couldn't stay with me in the hospital. And I already had severe PTSD. Now, these weren't like life changing reasons to have a surgery. It was more of one that I felt like I'm a strong, independent woman and I can deal with it. So I went home, and Dave, to be honest, my house was in foreclosure. My HOA was auctioning off my home, and it was over 120 degrees out, and my water got turned off. I had this piece of crap red van that had no AC. I mean, this thing like caught fire in winter in North Carolina. Like, she does not like weather. And I drove to the water company. I profusely cried. Like, I'm not a crier, and I cried, and I was like, how am I turning back on this water? I have no idea. To be honest, I have no idea how I got it turned back on. But what I will say is the most pivotal moment happened. I was helping a friend during my pregnancy because I was so bored, and I helped her generate $1 million of revenue in her business. This is redoing her brand, doing her website, doing SEO, doing blogging, talking to people, like whatever I could do, I could do because I was so bored out of my mind. I mean, come on, mama five, like getting multiple degrees during pregnancy, like you can tell I'm an overachiever. And on the way home, I put on a podcast, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to start a business. I helped her. I can help other people. And I came home, built my website and my brand on my iPhone 8. So nobody tell me that you can't achieve things by your fingertips. I did not have a good laptop. I couldn't use Adobe. Like, my laptop that I had would crash if I tried to use Adobe. Within the first 7 days, I built $12,500. And that's when my business started. And what I recognize, to your answer, is over the past 6 years, I realized that no, I wasn't transforming their life in the brand, website, SEO. I was transforming their life when it came to storytelling and bringing out those key indicators of psychology around marketing. That is where the true money came. That I always hear, Andrea, you're so good with words. You're so good at talking to people. Like, people will talk to me and think I'm their instant BFF. And I always thought, well, I can't do anything with that. And then I realized I'm doing everything with that. So I no longer do the branding, the website. I'm leaving it to people just like you who freaking love it and thrive in it. And I get to bring their stories to life where they can come to people like you and transform it to that whole next level that lands in those amazing money-making opportunities.
Well, I have to say, as I think you just kind of really demonstrated the power of storytelling right there, because that story was incredible. And like, I know
Thank you.
anyone, for me, definitely, and for everyone who's listening, that's one of those stories that just like sticks with you, right? Like, it's so
Yeah.
impactful and drove the emotion that now we are associating that journey with you. So that is just a testament to storytelling, I'm sure.
Thank you.
And you mentioned partly you kind of started to tease some of the steps that you were taking to actually grow your personal brand, grow your business, and kind of circling back to what you mentioned in the beginning of the episode is now you are kind of fully going in on your personal brand. And what I love about personal branding is that you really kind of find that one superpower that you have and you become synonymous with that thing. And for you, you discovered that your superpower was helping craft people's stories, especially those stories that are going to convert into some sort of action for that person. So through your journey in building out your personal brand, has there been one thing that you've invested your time into that you've seen just kind of prove the ROI tenfold with gaining traction and whatever that might be, new clients, followers, just overall business opportunities?
Yeah, finding that golden moment and being brutally vulnerable. That is when everything shifted for me. That's when I went from charging $15,000 to $50,000. Let me say that again. 15 grand for a project to $50,000. And all it was I actually went and had weight loss surgery. I've lost 150 pounds and have kept it off for 2 years. And I made a decision, thank you, that before I went into my weight loss surgery, I thought, I'm a badass. I'm really, really good at what I do. And I am extremely vulnerable, transparent, and honest with you. And I will plaster that everywhere. And one thing that I did was I put my entire story on my website. So I went into my weight loss surgery and I had a call booked the week that I got out. And they said that they emotionally were driven by my story. They cried by my story and they knew immediately that they needed to hire me. And I had made that decision that I was going to charge $50,000 and they did not bat an eye at all over it. And they were like, I would choose you over and over and over again. And the reason being is we are not vulnerable as business owners. We are, how can we keep our information at our fingertips and then hide the rest until that paywall happens? And what I realize is if you drop the veil of the paywall, you actually get paid tenfold because you have now shared intimate truths about yourself. And when you can be extremely beautifully and brilliantly honest with people, that is where true change happens. People want vulnerability, right? People want honesty. They want to know through the trenches where you're at, but you're also not sharing your bleeding wounds. Let me say that. You are not sharing your bleeding wounds. You're sharing things that you've overcame, that you've accomplished, that you've been able to do and achieve, and where you are at today. And even if you're still, like for right now, I made a huge pivot into what I do. I'm still struggling. I'll be honest. I'm now finding my way, finding my clients, and finding the right people to work with. But I am enjoying that journey. And guess what? Everybody that can understand that, entrepreneurs, business owners, we can all share that truth and be like, oh, she's struggling, but she's a few steps ahead. How can I get a few steps ahead too? That is what you're missing in your story.
We talk a lot about storytelling and the impact that it can have on your life, on your bank account. But let's talk more specifics about what makes up a story that can lead to that. What are the elements of a quality story that we need to make sure that we are incorporating into our own so that we know it's impactful? Because I think there's storytelling and then there's impactful storytelling. So how do we make an impactful story?
Yeah, an impactful story means we are, and I don't do anything that isn't impactful, especially being a previous behavior and trauma therapist. So if you work with me, get ready because that therapist, Andrea, comes out and we're going way back when to really solidify and see what you've accomplished. Now, a lot of storytelling coaches that you will work with will not go that far back. They're trying to look at what are you changing right now or what did you change when you first got started. That's impactful, yes, but the one that you're talking about is even more impactful. I was able to share an impactful story with you because it was rooted in my trauma of what had happened to me that was deeply significant that other people can relate to. Other people can relate to my story because they're like, oh, I've been through a trauma, or I've been through a really hard time, and how can I overcome that too? So what I like to talk about is my Mike framework. And what that means is M is that memorable message, that mindset shift. So a story that sticks when it is vivid, it's emotional, and it's grounded in sensory detail. So those key indicators are like using a time and place. Like I love to say, are you familiar with North Carolina
Somewhat.
or the East Coast?
Yeah, I'm in Philly, so
Perfect.
somewhat.
Then you know. Okay, here it goes. The fall weather and the beautiful changing of the season, and the trees start to change color and drop. Can you start to vividly see that? Yeah. That is the vivid story that we're talking about. We're talking about the time, which is fall, the place, which is around trees that are falling, their beautiful leaves. Then we include or you can include a turning point, that aha moment that is going on. Where were you? Okay, it's fall, the trees are gorgeous, their leaves are falling, and then I realized I hated everything in my life. That's an aha moment. We had an aha moment. It was based around time and place. So, an example could even be if I'm thinking about a stage, right? The stage lights blinded me. My palms were so sweaty, and I could hear my heart pounding like a drum. Again, relatability. How can we bring that memorable piece into it? What was memorable? How can you have people see themselves in that? People can see themselves. So then we move into inspirational. A great story inspires by showcasing transformation or overcome adversity. I showcased that when I said I didn't know how I was going to turn my water on, but I got my water turned back on. That was a beautiful example of something that's inspiring. So I highlighted the struggle and the triumphant of I got it turned back on, especially with 5 children at home. So I want you to focus even on the audience's potential to achieve similar results. So think about what is it that you offer and what are similar results, because we have to remember who we work with are typically a few steps, 10, 15, 20 steps behind us, but they want to be where you are today. So how are you showcasing that and showing them that they can achieve similar results? So an example could even be, I went from being a shy, unsure speaker to closing 5-figure deals, all because I found my voice through storytelling. So now we're showcasing that. And then we move into C. So that conversion focus. So stories guide your audience towards action without being salesy. We don't want to be sold. Now, we want to be sold to, but we don't want to be salesy sold to in an icky, slimy way. And stories gradually are conversion based and really go off of your customer's journey. So that's something really important to think about. So stories should guide your audience towards action without ever being salesy. So a technique could be connect the story resolution to your offer. And then it could be show your solution and how it bridges that gap. So for me, that's why I created my Mike framework to help speakers like you step confidently into sales, because it goes from storytelling to sales. And I make that money, honey, love money. And we want to do it in a way that's not going to make people feel slicky or slimy. So really think about those. And then I also want you to think about 3 key indicators within the brain. So we have our amygdala, which is the emotional center. We have mirror neurons, which is our empathy engine, which enables us to have that authentic connection. And then we hit on that prefrontal cortex, which is our decision center. So these are three major places within our brain chemistry that can guide us to decision making and really guide us and connect with our story. So we're not just storytelling to storytelling. Here's the science behind it. And those three, and it does open up more areas of your brain when you storytell, but these are three core ones that I really like to hit on.
Love that. And so now that we have kind of the foundations for how we can put together our story, where and how should we best promote that in order to get the results we're looking for?
Oh, everywhere. If you think storytelling is just for stages or conversations, you're highly wrong. This is your marketing. This is going into your website. This is going into your conversations. This is going into your content. This is going into, I love doing series for content. And one that I do is my Monday mini series. And this is literally getting into storytelling for business owners and how they can use it. Go into storytelling instead of flip your teaching into storytelling, because if we can flip our teachings into storytelling, you're now guiding them down the way of learning, which is teaching, and leading to conversions. So I highly think that it's effective when you're really smart about how are you storytelling when you talk to people? How are you guiding? Remember, storytelling is guiding conversations. It's not like I'm going in with an agenda to sell. I'm going in with an agenda to how can I change this person's life today through my story that then leads to sales.
Love it. Now, when someone wants to work with someone like yourself or is ready to find that impactful story that's going to attract and convert their clients or new business opportunities, what should they have ready and prepared, both mentally, I guess, documentation wise, before they would reach out to someone like you to best kind of hit the ground running?
Okay, so for me, I don't want you to have anything ready. I like blank slate because if you were to prepare, there's an over preparedness. Then you're coming in with an agenda and you think that that's the story that you need to tell, when I'm going to actually story mine with you and we're going to go through a lot of questions, a lot of therapy type talk. We're going to go into a conversation and it's funny. I did a call with someone and they were like, I have no idea what to expect. And I was like, good, I'm glad. And by the end, they were crying and telling me that this was the most beneficial call that they've ever had, and that they shared and uncovered things with me that they haven't even thought of since they were little. And for them, that was really impactful because then they're going to go at conversations differently. And these are multi-million dollar real estate agents. So I'm really proud of them. And then they go into conversations differently when you're sharing a piece of yourself or when you're recognizing things that you didn't realize, or maybe for them, it was a real struggle that they had never thought of, that it was so deeply rooted that they were like, I haven't thought about this because there was so much trauma around it. But even though there's a lot of trauma around it, guys, there is a story to show because of look at where you've come. Like, I was able to show them this is where you were, this is where you've clawed through, and this is where you are today. And what an inspiration to tell others, because that people want to be inspired, right? Like when we go in front of people, we typically feel less inspired. We think about our pain. We think about all the things that we personally are going through. And then we listen to somebody speak and we get that new sense of, oh my God, this is an idea that I need to implement. Oh my gosh, I need to approach this conversation differently. Oh my gosh, like, right? Like light bulb moment conversations. That's what storytelling does for you. So, honestly, if you're going to come to me, I want you to be a blanket slate. I don't want you to overthink it. And I work with a lot of high achieving business owners that are like, want to have all their ducks in a row and want to have everything listed out just as I am. But I don't want you to have that because we're not going to find your golden moment through you trying to sift through all of that you think you've achieved.
Speaking of, so you mentioned some of the people that you've started to work with and kind of their mindsets and what they were able to achieve. Can you kind of cherry pick one example of someone that you've worked with and what was kind of like that journey like? What were the steps you put in place with them, and then kind of what were the results that they got from crafting and promoting their story?
Yeah, so I work with somebody recently and she very much had a beautiful story, but all of her slides were teaching. And I was like, wait, where did that story go? Because we often tell the story to who we're talking to. We're not telling the story in a sense of, and she was getting prepared for a speech. She was getting on a speech. She was actually speaking for Google. So it was a really big deal. Actually, no, I'm sorry. Google was the response of what she got from working with me.
Spoiler
So she
alert.
was actually getting, yeah, spoiler alert, she was actually getting ready for a college preparation where she was going in front of college students and she just needed to get her ducks in a row. She's like, I don't think my presentation is landing. I'm really struggling with my presentation and I also don't know if my story is there. So I got on with her and her story was there when she talked to me, and her story wasn't the same after she talked with me. So let me preference that, because what her story she thought was perfect wasn't the story that she should actually be telling. So we found her golden moment story. We changed all her slide, or not all of her slides, but we added in storytelling slides that would match her teaching slides. So if we're storytelling, then we're teaching and we're showing the results. So that's what we're doing so that you can show what you are capable of as a business owner and as a speaker. And then after telling that, she got asked to go to Google. So through Google, she now has gotten her first paid speaking gig, and she got paid $1,000 for her speaking gig coming up shortly. And she is just like now getting inundated with, I need you. How can I hire you? How can I pay for you to come in? And remember, speaking is a form of marketing. So she's going into organizations, she's going into colleges, she's going into Google, she's going into masterminds. These are places that you can really showcase your authority outside of summits or podcasts or things like that. But you can get hired by organizations to come in and teach their team. So these are just another high level way of growing and being able to showcase your authority. And you're getting paid for these teachings aside from, now people that are in that room are your ideal audience and they're going to want to hire and work with you too. So you're getting a speaking fee and then you're getting paid for the clients in there and ongoing. And then you're also finding more opportunities to speak.
Well, that right there is the kind of ROI sales pitch right
Yes.
there as to why it's important to invest into this. And I guess speaking of that, if someone found that value and understands they need to craft their story in order to get those speaking gigs to attract more clients and get that revenue, what's the best way for someone to get a hold of you and get in contact and get started?
Yeah, you can go to Instagram or LinkedIn. Those are my two primary places that I hang out. And it's the Andrea Merrill. So AndreaMerrill. And then my website is andreamerrill.co.
There it is. There's the personal brand right there. That's what we
I'm
got.
literally so excited. I can't tell you. I have never been more excited about a brand in my life. And it goes back to what you were saying when you find your genius and you hone in on it, you then want to shoot from the rooftops. Hey, this is me, and look at what I'm achieving, and look what my ultimately, what are my clients achieving? Because it goes back to, I want to give a voice to those that don't have one. That's exactly what speakers and business owners do. They give their people their voice back, which then goes to ripple effects. So I did one to one, and now this is one to one and then one to many. And that means I'm making that profound ripple effect in the world.
Love it. I think it's a great place to kind of put a bow on everything.
I love
A
it.
big thank you to Andrea for being on today's show and walking us through how we can grow and monetize our personal brands with the power of storytelling. To learn more about how you can launch, grow, and monetize your personal brand, subscribe to the Personal Brand Blueprint podcast. Follow me, Dave Polykoff, as well as Andrea on LinkedIn. And check out zenpost.com for details on how we can work together directly. Links to all three, plus links to all of Andrea's socials and offers are in the show notes below. Thanks, and see you on the next episode of Personal Brand Blueprint.
Thank you.